Hi, my name is Molly Michaelis, and today I am going to present a data story for my Journalism 309 class. The topic of this presentation is Beyond the Scoreboard, How Fan Engagement and Popularity Drive the Success of Big 12 Men's Basketball Teams. So what is it exactly that drives the success of Big 12 basketball teams? Is it the performance on the court, the engagement of the fans, or their social media presence? In this presentation, I'm going to explore these factors and how they impact the success of the teams. So in this data story, there are some terms that I'm going to use that you may need to become more familiar with in order to understand all of the information I'll be sharing. So the first term is PPG, and that is an abbreviation for points per game. The next is attendance, which is the number of fans that attended a certain game. Bid is an invitation to play in the NCAA tournament. If no bid is received, the team did not qualify, or sometimes that's written as DNQ. Winning percentage is the wins divided by the total number of games played. Engagement rate is the likes plus the comments plus the shares divided by the total number of followers on that social media account. And then followers are the number of accounts that follow or are subscribed to in a selected account or page. So just a little bit about the data. The majority of it comes from a shared spreadsheet that was compiled with data found by various members of my data storytelling class. Additionally, I used sources found through my own research in order to complete my own spreadsheet. All of the data has been collected within the past 4 months and from reliable sources that are cited within the spreadsheet, and this allows for it to be consistently accurate. Statistical and social media both were collected on all 10 Big 12 basketball teams. Those teams include, from left to right, top to bottom, the University of Kansas, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, Baylor, Texas, Texas Tech, West Virginia, Oklahoma, TCU, and Kansas State. So the first group of my insights focus on the influence of fan attendance and home court advantage. The first insight is that across the Big 12, there is an average attendance of 10,534 at home games. The visual above on the left represents the average number of fans that attended home games. Each color and circle represents a different team, and each bubble represents the average attendance at home games. So the bigger the circle, the more people attended, and vice versa. To the right is just a table that shows how the average attendance compares. As you can see that Kansas at the top of the list with 16,300, and it's also the biggest circle on the chart. And then TCU had the lowest because it's on the bottom of that table and the smallest circle at only 6,192 fans for their average home game attendance. For the next insight, KU and Texas both had sold out home games consistently throughout the season, but Oklahoma State only averaged 55% full arena for their home games. On this slide is just a bar chart that shows that Texas averaged over 100% of a filled stadium, whereas Oklahoma State only filled the stadium up about 55% of the time on average. The next insight is that home arena percentage filled and home point differential is highly correlated. So this linear regression line on the scatter plot seen on the screen shows that there's this very strong correlation between home arena percentage filled and the home point differential. So as you can see by the Texas plot, the small blue plot at the top right of that chart, the higher the difference in points scored at the home games, the higher the team's home arena average capacity, or average percentage filled, sorry. Next up is insight group number 2, and that focuses on the performance and postseason success of these Big 12 men's basketball teams. So insight 2.1 is that Texas had the highest average points per game at 80, and Oklahoma had the lowest average points per game at 69 points. On this slide, you'll see a dot plot to your left with the average points per game for each team in the Big 12. At the very top left of the screen is Oklahoma was 69 points on average. This is the lowest among all 10 teams in the Big 12. The team with the highest average points scored was Texas. They averaged 80 points. Next to the dot plot is just another table that shows the average points for every team from highest to lowest. So once again, you'll see Texas at the very top with 80 and Oklahoma at the bottom with 69. Insight 2.2 is that the only Big 12 teams that have won the NCAA tournament are KU, Baylor, and Oklahoma State. So, of those three teams in the Big 12 that have won the NCAA tournament before, only two teams have won it more than once. KU is a four-time national champion, and Oklahoma State has won the tournament twice. Baylor has only won one time. And then to the right, once again, you'll just see a table with those numbers on the wins. Insight 2.3 is of the 10 Big 12 teams, 7 have received a bid for the 2023 NCAA tournament. KU was actually the highest seeded team at number 1, and West Virginia among the seeded teams was the lowest at number 9. So of the 10 Big 12 teams, only 3 did not qualify for the NCAA tournament this season. Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and Texas Tech did not qualify. At the top of this table, you will see that Kansas was the highest seeded team with a 1 seed. And then the average of the teams that made it to the tournament, the average seed was a 4. So for Insight 2.4, that is that Texas had the best regular season record with 29 wins and only 8 losses, whereas Oklahoma had the worst regular season record in the conference with 15 wins and 17 losses. So 2 more losses than wins for Oklahoma. This stacked bar chart that you're seeing on the screen shows that Oklahoma has the worst regular season record with more losses than wins. And then above that, you'll see that Texas had the best regular season record with significantly more wins than losses. So for insight group number 3, it is the last insight group, and it just proves that social media is a very important factor in the popularity and success of these Big 12 men's basketball teams. The first insight in this group is that men's basketball is popular within the Big 12. There are over 900,000 Instagram followers between all of the profiles. So these 2 visuals on the screen show the varying Instagram followings of the team's Instagram accounts. So this is looking at the accounts for the team specifically. So not for the athletics page, not for a certain player or coach, just the team the account that represents the entire team. The left visual is a bar chart ordered from highest at the top and then lowest at the bottom. On the right is a bubble chart representing the following count. So once again, the larger the circle, the larger the following, and vice versa. Each color and circle represents a different team. So you will see that Kansas is at the top of that bar chart as well as the largest circle, and TCU is at the very bottom of the chart in the smallest circle. So this is just a chart for the first insight that I was just speaking about. It shows the following count for each team's Instagram. Kansas was the team with the largest following with 272,000, and that's at the top of the table. And then TCU had the smallest following of 28,300 and is at the bottom of the table. The average attendance for all of these Instagram accounts was just below 91,000. The second insight in this group is that on Instagram, Iowa State had the highest engagement rate, whereas Oklahoma had the lowest Instagram engagement rates. The visualization on this slide shows how the high and low engagement rates compare with the average for all teams' engagement rates. So you'll see that the dot on the far left represents Oklahoma. So that pink dot had the lowest engagement rate of 9.6 per 1,000 followers. The middle dot on this visualization represents the average engagement rate for all Big 12 basketball Instagram accounts at 30.8 for every 1,000 followers. And then lastly, the purple dot on the right represents Iowa State's engagement rate of 47.8 per 1,000 followers, which is the highest among all teams. Just to the right of this visualization is once again a table that lists all of the Instagram engagement rates. So you'll see Iowa State at the very top and Oklahoma at the bottom. For this visual or for this insight, it just proves that there is a correlation between the regular season winning percentage and Instagram engagement rate. On this scatter plot is a point for each of the Big 12 basketball teams, and the trend line is based on all data points and teams. The trajectory of the trend line is showing that there is a strong correlation between winning percentage and Instagram engagement rate. So as you'll see by the Kansas plot point at the very top right of the chart, the higher the winning percentage, the higher the team's engagement rate on Instagram. The only 2 points that could be considered outliers of the scatter plot are Texas, which is at the bottom right of this chart, and Iowa State, which is at the top kind of center of the chart. So this is a table for that scatter plot that we just saw, and it shows the Instagram engagement rate for every 1,000 followers and winning percentage for each team next to each other. So those 2 outlier points that I was speaking about are Texas, which is towards the bottom of this chart, and Iowa State, which is at the top of the chart. So while Iowa State has the highest engagement rate, it has a low winning percentage of only 0.58. On the other hand, Texas had a very high winning percentage of 0.78, but it had a very low engagement rate of only 18.9 per 1,000 followers. So these are just the 2 points that don't really follow the pattern of all the other accounts. So for this last insight of my presentation, I'll be speaking about how there is a strong correlation between the difference in points scored at home and the Instagram engagement rate for the Big 12 men's basketball teams. So this linear regression line on the scatter plot also shows a strong correlation between Instagram and home point differential. So as you'll see by the Iowa State point plot on the chart, which is that purple dot on the top right corner, the higher the difference in points scored at home games, the higher the team's Instagram or engagement rate on Instagram. The only point on this chart that would be considered an outlier would be Texas, which is that blue dot in the top kind of middle left of the chart. Texas had a very high home point differential, but a low Instagram engagement rate. So this table is just showing the Instagram engagement rate and home point differential for all the teams side by side. Once again, highlighted on the table are the outlier points. Oklahoma State, which is towards the middle of that table, had a very low home point differential and a high Instagram engagement rate. And like stated in the previous slide, Texas at the bottom of this table had a very high home point differential and low engagement rate. But considering that these 2 outliers are not very significant and they're minimal outliers for this group of 10, it still proves that there is a strong correlation between the difference in points scored at home and the Instagram engagement rate. So that just kind of wraps up my presentation and proves that the fan engagement and popularity can drive the success of these basketball teams in the Big 12 conference. If you would like to learn any more about the data that was used in this presentation, on this slide are hyperlinks to the Microsoft Excel spreadsheet and data reflection, as well as on this post page is links to those as well. So once again, just thank you for your time and attention today. Feel free to check out any more of my work on my portfolio, which is hyperlinked on this slide as well.